Justice League number 15, written by Jeff Johns, art by Ivan Reyes. This is part 1 of the Throne of Atlantis, and there's a prelude to this in Aquaman. It's kind of needed for character development, but not really for plot. So we pick up with all the fish in the ocean swimming away from something coming out of a crack in the ground, and we cut to a airship or a airplane carrier, whatever it's called. And they're like, all right, sir, we're going to fire the missiles off in like 2 hours times for the test. And they're like, okay, sounds good. But then all of a sudden, all the systems go haywire and the systems just start firing immediately. But they're just firing into the oceans. And everyone's like, what just happened? Well, luckily it was in the ocean where nobody was. And then we follow the missiles down. And wouldn't you know, they impacted Atlantis and everything blew up down there. Then we cut over to the Kent farm where Clark is getting out of his Superman gear, or rather putting on his Clark gear. And he's explaining like, yeah, I don't wear a mask when I'm a superhero because I want people to look at me and trust me. So I made Clark Kent the mask instead. And he's talking to Wonder Woman, who's like, that sounds stupid. And he's like, give it a shot. And he hands her a pair of glasses. So then we cut to Cyborg, who's up on the watchtower. He's talking to his dad, and his dad's like, hey, that aircraft carrier thing, there was a niece of somebody important, and they would like the Justice League to look at it. Can you do that, Cyborg? And he's like, yeah, I can run through all the ship's data and find whatever, but I'm not going to get that much about what it was targeting because I can't go underwater. And he's like, well, I mean, I could do that extra replacement surgery in order to get you to breathe underwater. And Vic's like, yeah, at the cost of my last remaining lung. No thanks, Dad. And then all of a sudden, all the power on the space station goes out, and he's like, oh, that's not normal. So he calls up Batman, and he's like, hey, I got a backup generator going. We're rebooting back up, but do you know what's going on, Batman? And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, there's a blackout here, and also that aircraft carrier apparently had a blackout, so that can't be a coincidence. And Batman's chasing after some goons that are working for Scarecrow, and they're taking a speedboat out on the water to get away from Batman. And as Batman's taking a few shots at them, some of them come at him with guns, and before they're able to do anything, Aquaman shows up and just breaks their boat in half and says like, yeah, you're welcome for the assist, Batman. Batman's like, yeah, thanks, didn't need it though. Anyway, what are you doing here? And he's like, okay, so all up and down the East Coast, fish are just leaving. Like, they're not here anymore. And I don't know what's going on because they're just running away. And the last time this happened, it was the trench from my own book. You read that, right, Batman? And Batman's like, sure. And one of the goons, as they're being put away in the cop car, grabs a cop's gun and is about to fire it. And Mara comes in and sweeps him off his feet using her water magic. And so she's part of this book now, too. And Mara's like, hey, I did some more looking into the fish thing, Aquaman, and none of the fish are running to anywhere. They're just kind of like scattering and running away from the upper East Coast. And Batman's like, okay, you're saying this stuff, but Cyborg just told me this thing about this aircraft carrier. I'm wondering if the two are linked. And before they can really say anything about that, we get glimpses of this fishing boat that's like, man, there's no fish. And then this giant wave just starts approaching them. So cut over to Metropolis. Wonder Woman and Superman are just having dinner, but as their secret identities. So Diana's like, oh my god, this is amazing. Nobody's like gawking at me. And it's like, I know, isn't this great? So they just chill around here, and Diana seems very grateful that Clark is letting her experience just a normal life. And he's like, yeah, no, the first of many, hopefully, wink, wink. But then the power goes out in the restaurant, and they look out the window, and they see approaching Metropolis is this skyscraper-sized wave carrying the aircraft carrier in its wake, about to crash into the city. Like, day after tomorrow style. So, of course, Superman and Wonder Woman, they jump into action, and they immediately go to stop the aircraft carrier. We see that Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane are out in the crowd, and they're running away from the surge of water. They stop the aircraft carrier just by grabbing it, and they're like, okay, water's still coming in. We can use the aircraft carrier to stop some of it, but there's still a lot of people. And Clark uses his supervision, and he sees all the people like trapped inside the ship and running away from the water, and he sees Lois, who is also drowning in the water. And he's like, oh, geez, we can't save everyone. What do we do? And before he can even decide to do anything, Volko, who was introduced in the Prelude issue, maybe it was a Zero issue, he's been around. He jumps in and he grabs Lois Lane and saves her life and passes out because I guess that took a lot out of him. So apparently Metropolis was hit by a tidal wave. Boston was hit by a tidal wave, which I guess no one was there to save. And Gotham is next on the list. So at this point, Aquaman looks around and he's like, oh, crap. Batman's like, you got something to share? And he's like, yeah. These are the Atlantean war plans that I helped to write. And I think my brother just started them. And we get a glimpse of Orm, the Ocean Master. I think he's just called Orm right now. Is raising his army of Atlanteans, coming after everyone. So, yeah. Big moves. I gotta say, I do enjoy this issue. I think that it is a solid start to the event. It really works in tandem with the Prelude issue in Aquaman 14, where you set up that Aquaman and Orm are... There's brothers. Like, they talk to each other. They're not enemies right now. So this is truly a surprise from Aquaman's side. You didn't see this coming. I also think it's a good little twist on the old, like, Batman has plans for everything, where now Aquaman's the one who has plans for conquering the surface, and now they need to overcome those plans. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah, overall, I the art's fantastic. I really like the Superman Wonder Woman stuff. Generally, it's just an all-around good issue. I really have no faults with it at all. If I really had to criticize something, I'd say the Cyborg thing just kind of get tossed in there because it's, oh, I'm Cyborg and I'm concerned about whether I'm human or robot. And it's like, yeah, but like, do you have literally anything else going on? Like, I get it's a big deal for you, but like, there's got to be more to your character, man. So that's my only minor critique. But overall, I'm going to give this one an 8.5. I really do think that it's fantastic. Yeah, not much more to really say. And then the next issue is Aquaman 15. So we'll pick up there.